Hello and welcome. I'm Bob Lichter, and I will be interviewing individuals for Kenosha Voices, an oral history project for the Kenosha County Historical Society in conjunction with Kenosha Community Media. I am a member of the Kenosha History Center and have volunteered there since 2015. We hope that you will enjoy these programs. I'm with Dr. Jim Fulmer, an active member and past president of the Kenosha Rotary Club, Rotary Softball Tournament co-commissioner, and president of the Kenosha Rotary Softball Hall of Fame. Local author, Kenosha softball historian, and Hall of Fame member Paul Vagnoni, and local softball player, well-known softball player, and Hall of Fame member Jack Zimmerman. Hello and welcome.
Thank you.
Paul, you've written 2 books on Kenosha softball, History of Kenosha Softball. How far back did you go with that?
Early 60s. Had to dig a little bit for like the Terabasi team won in 1962 in New York. It was the World Industrial Championship. They won that. A whole slew of those guys are in the Hall of Fame. And that was the first year of Terabasi. And it's just snowballed from there. Then started into the middle and late 60s. It's when guys like Jack started playing, Wizard, Gene Willems, and it started taking off. And then by the early 70s, I think when I wrote the book, somebody brought me a copy of their entry fee for the city tournament. There's over 100 teams. For the entry fee for something was only $10 to get in. But they had it was the early 70s when it really took off.
So from maybe late 60s through the 70s, 80s, 90s, softball.
80s, oh yeah.
Softball was huge in Kenosha as a cultural, social event.
Right.
Look forward to that all summer. The Rotary Softball Tournament, Jim, when did that start?
That started, I think, in 72, maybe 71, 72. So, yeah, back then the City Softball League was big. Our club just formed in 71, I think, the Kenosha West Rotary Club. And our first year for fundraiser, we had a corn roast. And then after that, we decided, let's switch into the softball arena. So I'm pretty sure it was 1972 was the first Rotary softball tournament.
And how many teams were in that first?
Yeah, I would have to guess that because for the first 10 years, just to try and make it fair, we took out the national division. National division was the top 8 players in the top 8 teams in the city.
Teams, yeah.
And we just thought, now granted this is 20 years before my time, but anyhow, I'm sure what they thought was, let's just make this more of a community events where teams that know they wouldn't have a chance winning if they were going against those 8 teams from the national division. So for the first 10 years of the Rotary softball tournament, no national division teams were allowed.
So that was an annual event at Lincoln Park the whole time?
And it became just known as the Rotary, as if the Rotary,
Right.
you know, this multinational, million-member organization that does good worldwide, as if the Rotary is just a softball tournament in Kenosha. But that's what it became.
Sure, it's a huge organization, right?
Right.
Okay. And back then, too, in those years, I mean, Paul mentioned city tournament. Was there a Kiwanis tournament, too, at one time?
Yeah, the JCs are.
JC?
It was usually in June. The Rotary was in July, and the city tournament was in August. Those are the 3 tournaments. Everybody marked their calendars and set aside those weekends. Nobody got married on those weekends.
That's right.
I literally had many phone calls over the years. Next July, we're getting married. When is the Rotary?
Yeah.
And in 2023, it's coming up next month, correct?
Yeah. Already.
Next month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Jack, you played in that tournament many years. When did you start playing City League softball?
When I got out of high school, right out of high school, because I played with the Kenosha Billiards. It was kind of a accepted situation that since I was in the pool house and at 15, that hanging around with Peterson and Deloria and the Hanneses and Willems and the guys, it was kind of just expected that I would play, you know.
What year is that?
That'd be 1967.
And where was that billiard?
The Kenosha Billiards,
Where was
that
that?
was downstairs of the Schwartz building,
That was
which
the hole, was it?
was called the Hole.
Okay.
Well, no girls were allowed, and the girls would call down and we would come up. But it was it was a heck of a place. It really was. You meet all kinds of characters and stuff, and I guess that was as good an education as high school for me.
And you were a three-sport athlete in high school, correct?
Yes. Yeah. What was nice is very fortunate that at that time in 1964 we had the Kenosha school split with Tremper and Bradford. So Tremper got most of the good players. We had the quarterback Trebin and Junklin and Zander, and they had a better team than we did. Our sophomore, without being sophomore. But what was nice is that it allowed Laba and I and the kids to play 3 years of baseball, and for me 3 years of football, and so that was beneficial all the way around for us. But the high school experience, I couldn't imagine going through high school without Dick Laba, because he was our quarterback, the best basketball player we had, and of course we all know he's, I guess we might say
Pretty decent, huh?
I guess you might say you could call him one of the very best, if not the best in town. I just always think that after playing with him since Little League and Pony League in high school and all that, I just kind of just expect that to say he's the best all-around player, like the article that you brought from Jim Corcovan many years ago, and Jim used to come, was good friends with my father, and he came to the house to interview us once for a thing for Racine for Buck Night. $1 to go see us on my program. But the high school thing, I'd like to do it over again, really and truly. I think I'd try to less extra activity and more bookwork activity. I'd like to see how to come out.
So you go back in those years, you were playing football at Lakefront Stadium.
Yes,
correct.
That was one of the most, people who don't know Lakefront Stadium, where we practiced, of course, wasn't on the field, it was on the, next to the, it was a dump, it was what it was years ago. It was
Right by the lake, right?
Oh yeah, and once it got good and wet out, and after some good rains, that was it. It was all crabgrass, and we were known for having a few good mud fights, and but Kenosha's, we'll never see something like that again. That is definitely a memory. Oh my God, just the clubhouse alone. But you see, you got Amici there and all the greats that, for me, as I grew up and saw those guys, in ninth grade, we'd go down and watch Fergilli and Pellegrino, Lattice and Morano and Tafora. Those guys
They're all Italian.
I think that's right. But they were the guys that I would have been a freshman. They were the seniors. So with Richie's group too, they had a great team. They really did. But those were some cold nights down there at the lakefront.
How many years did you play City League softball?
About some 67 to 83,
okay.
Right in there, till I moved to Illinois for my job.
Mm-hmm.
So you were able to play in the Rotary?
Well, no, not really, because the team that I was playing with then was the Summers Cardinals, and of course we couldn't.
In '83, it had to be a City League team.
Well, that was, and I was playing with Wizards.
Pitt's team.
Yeah, Wizards. Wizards it was called, and I don't remember us even getting into tournament.
I think about 50% of the people that are in the Kenosha Softball Hall of Fame never played in the Rotary. Something like that.
That's
all the
a
Terabasi
possibility.
teams from the 60s, all the guys we got in the post-war era, a few guys even before World War II.
Yeah.
And that
Almost
speaks to your
50%.
foresight too, because when you first started kicking it around, they said it'll be the Rotary Hall of Fame,
And it just
and you
didn't
said
make
no,
sense.
you're not. You're going to keep a lot
I
of
said,
people.
I want Zimmy in the hall.
Yeah, so it started out, the first thought was a Rotary Softball Tournament Hall of Fame was the first thought. Okay. So we've got all these decades of softball in Kenosha, all these names, all these people. And then Jim, at some point, the idea came up, should there be a Kenosha Softball Hall of Fame? So how'd that idea get started and the development of that? How'd that go?
Well, I would say many times. So I started being a commissioner a co-commissioner in about 92. And in the 90s, guys were saying things like we should have a Kenosha Softball Hall of Fame or a Rotary Softball Hall of Fame. And I thought, yeah, I think it's a good idea, but where are we going to do it, and how much is it going to cost, and who's going to pay for it, and how are we going to protect it? You know, so I thought, yeah, maybe someday, but we have to give that a little bit more thought. So one time, I don't know, must have been in 2010, 2011, Johnny Lynn, who's a really, really good softball player and almost a certain future Hall of Famer, he said to me, why don't we have a Rotary Softball Hall of Fame? Why don't we just make a brick garden right here and attach it to the existing pavilion that we had already built and paid for over at Lincoln Park.
That Rotary sponsored that.
Yeah, Lincoln Park, right between the two.
You know, because first of all, if we had, you know, so I called the State Hall of Fame. They were really encouraging, and he set me up with the guy. There's only one other city in Wisconsin that has a softball Hall of Fame, and that's Fond du Lac. Yeah. So he set me up with the head of the Fond du Lac Softball Hall of Fame, and he said, well, we have ours inside our main mall, you know, and it's, you know, just a nice display, and when the mall's closed, it's protected, and when the mall's open, you know, they have security, and you know, so looking at like maybe something where you put a brass plaque up or something like that, that would have to be protected. And so we went with the idea of an engraved brick as opposed to a brass plaque. Like, you know, even over at Amici football field in Kenosha, they have the Amici Athlete of the Year, and they put their name up on a brass plaque, but it's protected because of the gate and the lock and books for it. You know, so that wasn't going to be an option if we did it at Lincoln Park.
And Amici Field is by Tremper High School.
Right.
That
Used to be
nice
Anderson
idea.
Field.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice idea. Nice idea.
So then it was just a matter of who's going to pay for it. And one thing my Rotary Club did for decades before me is they would take on one major project and then pay for it over 10 years, like for instance, the pavilion at Lincoln Park. But then after that, we did the trading center at the Kenosha Museum. You know, they were looking for some financial support, and we were looking for a project, and that's what we ended up doing. And once we finished paying for that, it was time for us to decide what are we going to do with the other, our next project. And three of us threw around ideas, and my vote won. You know, so the Kenosha Softball Hall of Fame was then born.
I guess you could consider you the founder.
Yeah.
Yeah, with
so.
a lot of help from this guy.
Sure.
I think I used his book as a lot of my
That's how I
evidence
first
why
met you. I didn't know who you were.
Right.
It was at the Sisters Act. There's a thrift store on Roosevelt Road next to Clay's. If you want tell anybody how to get somewhere in Kenosha, you tell them what bar it's by.
It's true. That's right.
So Jim and a couple other guys were standing around, had the books there. He goes, hey, I've been kicking around. Hi, I'm Jim Fulmer. My old man, or dentist. I wouldn't know you were a dentist. You were out riding your motorcycle that day. You had a bandana on and stuff. And said, you know, we're going to have a Hall of Fame. We want some people for the selection committee. Would you be interested?
Yeah.
And I said, well, it's quite an honor. I agreed to it. And then it went on from, I was involved the first 2 years on the selection committee, then due to health reasons. And then the first book came out that year, 2010. And then the first Hall of Fame was 2012. By the time I started writing for the book following this, I was interviewing a lot of people. They found out I was on the selection committee, and they're using it as a way to campaign to get into the Hall of Fame. I'd ask them the questions about their team or their career, then all of a sudden, oh, Paul, by the way, and one guy brought me 5 typewritten pages of his accomplishments in softball. And that's what I told Jim. I said, it's getting harder for me to get to the meetings, and I said, I'll help as much as I can, but I don't want to be on the selection committee.
You just felt, I know a guy. Right?
Yeah, I know a guy. So, yeah, but it was a wonderful thing he started, because we wouldn't be here, none of us today, talking about this.
Absolutely. Now, take it from there. So the Hall of Fame has been established. You've got president, a committee. Where do you take it from there? How do names get brought up to be nominated for the Hall of Fame? Is it voted on then? How does that work?
Well, first of all, it was a self-appointed committee. I got to select everybody. And what I tried to do is, we knew we were going to have certain categories. We were going to have men and women and umpires and sponsors and contributors. And so I tried to get at least one of those. And then I tried to get multiple generations, like one guy that played in the post-World War II era and somebody as young as 50. So I thought I not only had some of the best softball players in town, but I had it from multiple angles. Mm-hmm. And so I thought that my committee knew more about Kenosha softball than any committee ever formed. All right, so what does that do? That provides a lot of names right away who thinks are going to be absolute
worthy,
slam dunks. Mm-hmm. Let's get them in the hall right away. And so how do you submit a name? Well, we would put something in the paper, we'd put something online,
radio even?
And we'd recommend people to, send in a bio. Mm-hmm. But the thing about City League softball, unless you played for Terabasi and had Al Gaidas that had kept such amazing records, or I take that back, I know that Puddles did as well, but most people don't know their career batting average, how many home runs they've had, all that kind of thing. A lot of guys have a hard time remembering every team they're on, and certainly aren't going to remember every tournament they've been in. And so a lot of it is, subjective. It's well, I remember that guy was great, but I couldn't tell you if he had more home runs than this guy. So it was a well-balanced committee. We welcomed more input from multiple other sources, but most of the guys that we knew were getting in had already been discussed before anybody submitted a nomination.
Okay. So this year, 2023, the names are out for the class of 2023. What's the time frame on that? Is that something that's decided over the winter months, or?
Yeah, typically we get together starting after Christmas. And first thing we do is, and all of our meetings are at Sunnyside Club. And I guess anybody's welcome to come if they'd like to come, but we don't advertise it. So anyhow, we'll spend a couple of months trying to formulate a ballot, and then in April we'll have the vote.
And it's not an easy thing, because Jim asked me to, through Paulie, he asked me if I would sit in on the session.
Because we need more information from guys that played against, the first. Well, I mean, seriously, some of the older guys, like Jack Rice, who was so important to our committee, he passed away. We don't have a lot of information from before 1960.
Right.
We need more information from the 60s and 70s.
Well, my point was when I said to Jim, asked me, I sat and listened to the guys talk and bring guys' names up and stuff, and they asked me about so-and-so and then so-and-so, and and I gave my opinion from what I knew. And some of the guys I just hadn't known, so I was intent on listening to their background. Well, near the end, and they were kind of getting to a point of maybe voting and stuff, I just said, guys, do you find it a little hard to separate personal feelings from, because a lot of them are friends, and ability, I mean, like Paulie said, somebody wrote in 5 pages of stuff to get in, I found it very hard. I told Paulie, I don't know, I wouldn't want the job to maybe decide that, unless you were, like Jim says, slam dunk. There are guys, especially in the first class, Lobbs and Perini and Deloria, then he had a trial with the Braves. So you got to lean that way.
And I think Lobbs and Perini played for the Milwaukee Schlitz, right?
Right.
The professional team.
Yeah. And Lobb hasn't made an error yet, so we won't worry about that. Yeah, he's something else. Yeah. But so for me, this is when I was told by Paulie in the summer of 2013 that they had a softball Hall of Fame. And it started in 2012, and you have been elected to the second year. And he said you'd get a plaque and you'd come on up and everything. And this has just been, and I am still overwhelmed. It's humbling. You know, come on, when you really think about it, we got this one here, not Waukegan, Racine, or Milwaukee, where all the legends and that we used to play against and we used to hear about, then they were no better than us, tell you the truth. And but you have something really special here. So for me, I am still humbled. And I told Jim, I says, I hope everybody takes this award differently. And I hope they value it as maybe not as much as some other people. But I was disappointed. Jim said there's about, what, 8 that never even bothered getting them. Getting the
Didn't
awards.
come to get their plaque.
Get their plaques and stuff. So, I don't know, maybe softball didn't mean too much to them at that time now in life, I don't know. But I can tell you, and Paulie knows, this was it. You couldn't play enough softball, either on the weeknights or weekends. You looked a week ahead of time. What's the weather going to be on the weekend?
Right.
I played in places in Louisville, Kentucky at Augusta Field where they were burning, 3 in the morning, they got fuel oil on the field, burning so we could play. And that's when Denny
We did that in the Rotary at Lincoln Park one year.
Oh my
We
God.
drenched the diamond with gasoline and started
this is how bad we wanted to get the game.
Probably wouldn't go over today.
I mean, softball was so huge because, like, there's guys that they're not going to be the Hall of Fame. But there's a guy since passed, Neil Boniface.
Oh.
Remember Neil?
Sure.
I'd always want to do the opening games on Monday on Sunday to Saturday when the tournaments would start. I always wanted to be at the beginning. And I'd be up there getting everything ready. 8:30. The first game's at 9. And Neil's there. He's got his bag and his bat. He goes, hey, Puddles. I go, hey, Neil, who are you playing for today? He goes, I don't know yet. I go, what do you mean? He goes, I'm seeing who needs a player. I just came out here to play ball.
Yeah.
And he'd pick him up and he'd do well. And that's how softball was usually like. When you think about this Hall of Fame, you're being recognized for something you did because you liked it.
Oh, yes.
Nobody said, this is your job, go and do this. You're getting recognized in a nice way for something you had a good time doing. You did for recreation.
Sure, and after we met for the pre-meeting, I really was thinking about that where, okay, you might play 2 nights a week, 3 nights a week, 4 nights a week, but you have a job, and maybe you have a job and a family and all kinds of other responsibilities. And to have talent and the desire to perform at that level and keep that up, that's a lot to be said about that.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to get too far away from Zimmy's induction because he totally stole the show that day. And since then, when he asked me if he could have the microphone, and I thought, well, okay, I don't know where he's going with this.
He doesn't even know me.
I don't really know him.
No, I didn't even know Paulie.
Not that your reputation didn't precede you, but I did not know him. And he took the microphone and he called up his girlfriend. He got down on one knee and proposed marriage to her. And we thought, this is awesome. What a great event.
I think I sent that picture.
Appreciated it.
That probably never happened again.
No.
Well, I have that picture from the newspaper cut out, and I do see Zimmy, Dr. Fulmer. Zimmy stole the show. Well, I didn't really mean to steal the show, but
that was wonderful.
It was an opportune time because Jill and I go back a long way and everything. Jack and Jill. But I knew part of the reason I had to join the billiards team at such a young age and being in the pool hall because of Jill's husband, Charles P. Stone, who is probably considered one of the very best pool players in the area, along with Babe Thompson and that. I go down and rack the ball, so indirectly I always tell her it's because of you. Yeah, I blame Jill. But this softball thing is bigger than softball because this is what we did for entertainment for the family. On weeknights, they bring all the kids. We ain't gonna babysit them, bring the kids along. You'd see them all along Roosevelt Park and sitting on the sidelines and stuff. But the best part about it, I believe, is the friendships that you make. I have no idea where my life would be without these 2 gentlemen right here. really and truly. This has made my 10 years of coming back to Wisconsin and watching the tournaments and being around the guys. That's where I value this. This is where, you know, I can play ball. But I'm a little bit humble too about that you really guys think I could play ball, you know what I mean? Yeah,
So, players nominated, voted on, invited to join the Hall of Fame. The ceremony is on Sunday of the weekend?
Right, we call it Championship Sunday for the Rotary Softball Tournament, because just making it to Sunday, you have to be one of the top 8 teams in the city, or at least that weekend. And then we will, just before some of the finals of the losers bracket, before the championship game starts, because we have 3 divisions some years, we have 2 divisions some, always men, always women, sometimes an A and a B on the men, depending on the number of entries. But before the championship double elimination games, we'll have the ceremony, typically just after lunch. And it works out great because every year it's growing. Every year we encourage the inductees to come back again. And like Jack said, you know, Jack's going to be there every year, I know, until he can't walk.
Like a bad penny, right?
We'll have photos of the class of 2023, and then we'll invite all existing Hall of Famers in front of the monuments, and it's just a blast listening to these guys talk to each other.
Can I ask, does anybody, now that we're viewing this now and being recorded, does anybody ever take in film? You know, just you got a guy there that films the Rotary inductions and stuff?
I don't
A
believe that.
videographer?
We had a videographer, I think.
Well, I think that'd be great because, well, this is going to, I just, like you say, it's growing bigger and bigger this year. I'm really pumped up for it this year because you asked me to sit in that time, but I really do. I hope that people can see this, that please, as many people can come out as the Hall of Famers. This will be, I think, the best one. Yeah, I think this will be the best one. And then we'll worry about next year, you know what I mean?
Just one till the next.
That's right.
And then, Jim, you mentioned a plaque. The player receives a plaque, then he also receives a brick in the walkway there?
Well, the brick goes, they don't get the brick. The brick stays at the Lincoln
okay.
Park. But yeah, they'll get a nice plaque that, you know, says honoring excellence for the
So at any
Kenosha.
point in time, somebody wanted to visit, they could just go there on, is it 18th Avenue, I think, and just visit the Hall of Fame?
Sure, it's about 70th Street, 71st Street, right there. And
Right
by the
between
parade.
the 2 diamonds.
Right, yeah.
And it's the bricks are, it says, looks like a diamond.
Yeah.
And it's got the infield, and then it's 3 monuments. I guess it would be like the wall or a fence almost. And it's just it's really well done.
And Jim puts them where he wants them.
Closer to where they played. You said where they played.
Right, if a player's a shortstop, I try to put him at shortstop on that diamond, but that's a pretty crowded position right now. And
And you know what the thing is, though, looking back at the list, so you look down the list, count how many guys are pitchers. There's only 5 or 6 pitchers in the Hall of Fame. I've been talking about slow pitch.
I know what you're saying.
Slow pitch is only 5 or 6.
There's there's a few fast pitchers.
Oh yeah, fast pitch, yes, definitely. I think those guys stood out in that game, right?
Well, you know, like for instance, part of my research, I went to the Kenosha History Center. Cindy Nelson, I think, was the curator at the time. And I was aware of the 1934 team that won the World Championship. And there was a pitcher on that team named Harry Kraft who could strike out, 30 guys a game in 9 innings. I mean, it was just amazing how many strikeouts this guy would have. And I know 3 times 9 is 27. Don't get me wrong. I know they played, I think he had 32 strikeouts one game because they played 15 innings or whatever it was. But anyway, so Harry and his brother Willie was the catcher. And Willie donated all of his softball stuff to the Kenosha History Center. And I thought, well, this is awesome. So I went through it, and I find a picture of his dad's team that won the 1906 State of Wisconsin Softball Championship. And there were other teams from the, 1918, I think it was the Kenosha Ramblers. And I thought, really? They had a Kenosha Ramblers 40 years before the car? I thought that was pretty great.
Funny.
But anyhow, it was a trove of information.
Go ahead.
Women's softball. 1970s started getting really big.
Yeah, 82 was the first year they
Okay.
were in the Rotary. I think it was 82.
Okay.
But
They had a bar league. They had the Brodies and Finney. They all sponsored
yeah.
girls' teams and stuff. But yeah, before it got into the tournament and stuff.
But there was city tournaments.
Yeah.
The women played Mondays, Fridays, and there was a co-ed for a while. And like I said, during the height of it, in the late 70s, early 80s, there was 275 teams in just playing on city league diamonds.
How many of those do you think were women's?
Oh, 80, 60, betcha 75, betcha, at least.
Wow.
And then you're not counting Hooker Lake Inn, the dugout, Sandy's,
Yeah, Furlan's dugout.
Shane Wally's.
Yeah.
I mean, there's 5 or 6 other venues you could play around here, and it was that popular, that many people were playing softball.
And that's just slow pitch.
So
Yes.
And that's not 14 or 16.
Sure.
Oh
and
no.
14 inches, that's almost exclusive to the Kenosha Racine area.
Yeah.
Nobody else, you couldn't go anywhere to buy a 14-inch softball.
Okay. So during the week, Monday night.
Monday night, 16-inch.
Yeah.
16-inch at Columbus Park.
Yep.
Tuesday was
It was slow
slow
pitch.
pitch.
Wednesday was fast pitch and 14-inch.
14-inch. Yeah.
Thursday was 12-inch again.
Was
And
there
then
much fast pitch in the city, or was that in the county?
They had fast pitch in the city for a little while at
A
Columbus
few years,
Park.
early I played in early
You play
70s.
fast pitch?
Yeah.
Over
Was it Columbus Park, right?
67th?
Columbus Park.
Yeah, Columbus Park.
What, 67th and 60th, where the Diamonds are? Is that where the guys used to play fast pitch?
By
there?
Little
Nash,
League.
Nashville?
Well, that's
Nash Park.
Wrickley, because that Carroll Wrickley
Yeah,
Park. That's Little
that's
League
60th,
Park.
yeah.
60th Avenue
Yeah.
and 67th. Wow. And the venues, like the parks, you started naming those off, probably even the city parks.
Oh my.
Lincoln,
Two Lincolns,
Porio,
Anderson,
Petretti.
Petretti,
You know what's
Betsky,
What's
Yeah.
sad is when you ride by Columbus Park,
Roosevelt Park.
there's no backstop even anymore.
No.
There's just lawn, you know.
Yeah, you're right. The
Makes-
pole.
Roosevelt Park, same way. It just
Makes me the saddest of them all is riding down Green Bay Road, past Highway E,
Yes.
and there's nothing there anymore. Finney's West being gone.
Yeah.
The booth is
That's
gone.
heard, yeah.
The concession stand, and
Put your heart and soul into that for over a decade.
yeah.
Yeah, and you think about what Finney and the guys did to put that together. There was a group that did it, of course,
Bosman.
but they brought in.
Grano and Bosman.
Yeah, wasn't Gary involved too, Peterson?
I don't know.
But he's always involved in something.
There
But
was a book to be made.
the guy, if there's book to be made, you're right.
I didn't say.
They brought in teams from New York. I mean, just from everywhere. You know,
Well,
Goofy's
the
out of-
national tournament
Yeah.
down at they played at Simmons.
That was excellent. Yeah.
That was the best softball I ever saw.
We had a traveling league from Waukegan, Racine, Kenosha, and what was it? It was, I think, 8 teams, eight teams at least. And of course, we go down there to play. They'd come up here to play. We rotate cities to go and play in. But you talk about it's another night that you're playing, and it's what Polly says is true. The kid shows up with a bat and a glove and that. Well, who are you playing for? I don't know. It's like you're going to get picked up on the weekend to go play somewhere. You know, it was just something that.
Did Finney run that league, that travel league?
Yeah.
No,
No. I know Peterson it was the Bachelors at that time. That was our
Bachelors,
team.
yep.
So I'm not sure how involved he was.
Because there was a Kenosha Kings
Dr.
team too.
Carlucci, and that he was involved. They had the Quonset hut in Waukegan. That was
good pizza.
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. But it was to see other kids play from Waukegan in that. Let me tell you.
Champs in that league.
Oh yeah, and they got tremendous teams, you know. And you just don't get that exposure just playing in the city. So going on the weekends and having the traveling league here, this was softball heaven for anybody that really wanted to play a lot. And there's a lot of guys that played a lot.
that league, they played at Simmons Field,
Yes.
where the Kingfish play now.
Yeah. Yeah. Then you actually had a fence up then too, so the guys could bomb them out there. That was kind of nice.
They brought in, I forget who it was when they had the big teams nationally. They played there on a Sunday once, And their second base, I was Mike Machenko, one of those guys playing second base. The second baseman was 6'3", 275. When the only guy who was small and could field was a shortstop. And I seen a guy hit it onto Chester's on one bounce with a softball.
Yeah, that's the
That was
little
warming up-
shopping center down
Yeah.
left field.
Yeah, that was they're
Before
warming up.
steroids.
Yeah, that was warming up, and he was a huge guy. This guy, I think he was their catcher, and he's popping up, and this little old coach was acts like this is part of a show. Say, next pitch, boom! It's an over fence and goes out on one bounce. I mean, it's Chester's on one bounce.
That kind of power is just unfathomable to me, you know, be able to hit a ball that far. I would stand there and look at it if I did, I'll tell you that right now.
I remember other events, you know, years back. You talk about entertainment, you know, this is entertainment. Like at Finney's West.
King in his court.
King in his
The
court.
Queen in her court,
Queen
too.
in her court.
They had the Chicago.
Douglas.
Yep. Well, Bobby Douglas played in a tournament.
Yeah.
That's a great.
I was there for didn't Ron Santo, Glenn Becker?
That was a special game, yeah. It's Beckert, Santo, a couple other Blackhawks. They played an all-star game against some Kenosha all-stars. Finney had that. And then one Sunday afternoon, it was really quiet, wasn't that publicized an event. St. Catherine's, when they're still down, you know, down by the lake in Kenosha, is their softball team against the Chicago Blackhawks in a charity big game. Bobby Orr was on the Blackhawks then.
Oh my.
And his knees were so bad that when he batted, like you see somebody will run for you, he had a little kid standing by home plate. When he hit the ball, the kid had to run the bases. He couldn't run because his knees were so bad. But you were sitting like where you, like we're 15 feet where there's Bobby Orr and Cliff Coral and all these guys that you watch play hockey on TV. And Bobby Orr's wife was with him. Pretty girl. Nothing you would think, oh, she'd be like some famous, just a pretty girl. She had a ring that could, you know, gag anybody, but it was just so cool. And like you said, the big events they have out there. Yeah.
Let me add one thing.
Go ahead, Jim.
On my committee for the Hall of Fame is Jeff Barsuli, who
Yes.
was a longtime catcher, fast pitch player, good player.
Yeah.
Played against the King in his court at Finney's, and hit one of the 4 grand slams ever hit off of the King. So let's talk about a claim to fame. One of the 4
boy,
people that
the
hit a
little
grand
guy's pumping his chest out
Yeah.
on that one.
I was just going to ask, describe the King in his court. What did that look
It was
like?
Eddie Feiner.
Eddie Feiner.
and 3 other guys.
Yeah.
His kid played shortstop. And Johnny Bateman, a professional baseball player, played for the Astros and the Expos. He was his catcher. And he had one guy run around the outfield catching. He pitched from second base blindfolded. You had to have a lot of stones to stand there at home plate and bat with a guy throwing from blindfolded that could throw as hard as he could. And he very rarely got beat. He rarely got hit.
So you had a pitcher, a catcher, and maybe one infielder, one outfielder.
Yeah.
And he just mowed everybody down.
I think who was Queen? I think it was Rosie Black.
Yeah,
That
her
was
name
her
was
name?
Black, yes.
Yeah, Rosie Black.
Yeah. And did about the same thing. And
Yeah, I know
struck
she got on the
guys
female
out, yeah.
level.
But what we're talking about here, that's it. That's it, folks. That ain't never going to happen again. That's the wonderful part about being able to have gone through this. We live in our memories, I sure know I do, about playing ball and everything, but we all talk about what we just mentioned. There's no place to play. Well, if you organize Little League and stuff like that, you play
Sure.
with fences.
Recplex
But
has-
there's no pickup games anywhere in the city, and I
no.
drive around, and that's the sad part because we have memories of when we were growing up playing ball. What do the kids have memories now of doing? This ain't where you play ball, folks.
Yeah.
I ain't won a game yet on one of these.
You think back in those days where you had this beautiful summer day like today, and whatever kid showed up in the park and you flip a bat,
Yep.
you run your hands up there and then
Yeah.
you pick your team.
Didn't have enough people who played second base over.
Oh, sure. And then to be stubborn, like over at Grant School, like we used to do, if we wanted to bust your chops, let's say like Lenny Fulmer, Lenny batted left-handed, so we all go over this to the right-handed side, and he'd get mad because he wouldn't pitch the ball outside for him. So Lenny tried to start to learn to bat right-handed and stuff. But we have enough kids to play, we'd have all fields covered and a catcher and guys waiting to play and stuff. Just hoping your name gets called as your little guy, you know, as you get older and that to play. Then later on, you're the captain and you're picking teams, and pretty soon, boom, you're in junior high and you ain't playing there no more. You outgrew the park. But the kids now, they're not outgrowing the park. They got swing sets and I don't know, no pickup games. I hardly ever see kids going down the street with a bat and a ball. You know, the backstop behind Grand School, there were 2 baskets, and on the east side, that basket was probably overused between me, Voynich, Baumgarten, and anybody else that would show up. Not only in the summer, but in the winter, just to chop the ice. Well, your mom and dad don't want you in the house. So you go up to school, and Richie had a really good ball too. It was like leather, was, you know, a good one for winter. And we play, you know. So as a kid growing up on the north side, with a lot of really good ball players, I could put a darn good team together. But I don't see that now, and I feel that the kids missed a whole lot of learning and good stuff. They talk about bullying and stuff. If you made now look, kids. I'm 6 years old and I'm learning the language of the kids a lot older than me. So as you get older, the more errors you make and all the stuff that we might have accumulated, the words we put together, we would call you everything in a book, we would slam you, and it wasn't bullying, because after a while we'd be all laughing at how stupid we were anyways, you're doing that stuff. But this is something, the human aspect of growing up as a kid, I think that's lost on these kids coming now, you know.
It was a social...
It was a riot.
Vital part of growing up.
It was a riot. Your mom and dad, they never worried where you were. My mom could call down to the school, but everybody knew what time to come home or come back to school to play. But society was different then. We're more, I guess, more loving, I don't know, more peaceful, more helping your attaboy instead of how things are now. It'd be, maybe I can understand why the kids don't go out, especially in the big cities. It might be tough trying to dodge a bullet and stuff. The only thing we dodged and when we played was a fastball from Richie. And you better take it because he's going to hit you.
Oh. Jim, what, over the years in your involvement with the Rotary Club and the softball tournament, what's most rewarding, best memories for you?
Most rewarding for sure is we've kind of set up, we have a committee, it's a fundraiser, we have a grants committee, all the nonprofits in town will request a grant, and then our committee will determine where the money that we raised goes. And so the week following the Rotary is the week that we give away the money from the previous year. So the meeting where the nonprofits are showing what this money is actually doing for them is great. Oh, but I've had a whole lot of wonderful moments associated with the Rotary softball tournament. One that really sticks out in regard to the Hall of Fame was the first year when George Journo Sr. was inducted into the Hall. I'd have to guess how old he was, but at least 85. And I think it was a day kind of like today, about 90 to 95 degrees outside. And this was before we did the whole stage thing, so we just did it on Diamond One, the infield of Diamond One. And here was this guy in his later years, you know, his main time playing was between 45 and 60, where he was a great second baseman, and his teams won, I think, 4 or 5 state championships, back when we used to have state championships. Mm-hmm. You know, and then through the 60s and 70s, he raised his kids and coached his kids, and through the 80s and 90s, he would be at the Rotary softball tournament watching his kids play and watching the city play, and by the year 2000, he wasn't really coming around anymore, and he thought we forgot about him, but we didn't. And when he, weaker in his old age, with 95-degree temperature, he was determined, I'm going to make it myself without any help up to the pitcher's mound to get my plaque. And it was just the sweetest darn thing that I ever saw. You know, it was just, at that point I knew what we were doing was good.
Great.
That meant a lot because his son, Tim, who was the manager of Terabasi's for many years, he was just over at my house last weekend, and it came up about his dad and how much it meant to him, and about how another guy's in the Hall of Fame too, John Tracy's dad. Was it Jack Tracy?
Yes.
He said he was the greatest pitcher that ever probably pitched. And
Jack's in the State Hall of Fame.
yeah, and he just said all his memories, it just didn't take anything, just going back that far, all these memories just, you know, and how much his dad appreciated about the Hall of Fame.
That makes me feel good because it makes me feel like he's as humble as I was. Yeah. And for him to get out there like that, you're darn right.
And it was hot because
I missed the first one. I loved to have seen that.
Wizard called me up. He was inducted. He calls me up and goes, "Hey, Puddles, Puddles." He goes, "It was horrible out there." He goes, "I think I almost died. It was so hot. I just barely made it back to the car. I almost died, Puddles. I'm serious." I go, "Well, what are you doing?" He goes, "Well, we had to stop at Bill's and have a cocktail." I got home finally.
Yeah, Cocktail, that was it. Yeah, his middle name, not Lynn, Cocktail Peterson.
And that name, that's probably one of the most colorful
Wizard?
figures in Kenosha South. Gary the Wizard Peters, the late, right? He's
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and the King, his brother,
Yeah.
Jack died
Jack.
just recently, last year too. But talking about that brings me up too, is several of his kids are friends of mine on Facebook, and they'll say, "Hey, when I read the stories about my dad, thank you." He goes, "Because I can just see him playing again and getting the other fans all riled up, and he goes, it's just like he was, playing again."
Yeah.
So
Wizard lived up to his name. Yeah, we always kid, me and Paulie, about writing a book about Wiz.
Wizard was, but you know what though? I put it in the book, I think, but he called me the day before he passed away. He didn't call me Puddles. He said, "Hey, Paul, I want to thank you for being my friend." He goes, "For all we've gone through together and stuff." He goes, "It really meant a lot to me."
Yeah.
And he said in the book too, he goes, "Thinking back, maybe I shouldn't have been such a dick when I was playing and pissed off so many people." He goes, "But," he goes, "there's one thing I'd never change. I'd fire up the other fans to this day." He goes, "That's what," he goes, that's why I was the Wizard."
Yeah. They love to hate him.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's a type of person.
In wrestling terms, he was a heel.
Yeah, he was a type of person with his personality. For me, I met him when I was 15, so I got a long history with him, and a lot of history with him. And we won't talk about
Most
that.
of it
but
legal.
One of the people that I have up on, other than that kneeling article, I got Wizard up there and Lobster. I got a bunch of people, Paulie, I say hi to every morning. And Gary is going to be gone 8 years already.
No,
This is an amazing situation. You don't realize it because we talk about him all the time. I hope he's listening and stuff. But he's truly one person that I know when Paulie would hear his name would always it's put a smile on your face. He was just a rat. I called him a rascal. He was a rascal.
Paul, you've been involved with softball in a big way for nearly half a century.
Wow.
What most rewarding, great memories for you over all those years?
That's tough. Getting in the Hall of Fame, I'm not saying it's because Jim said next to me, because it was the year that I got off the selection committee. It was the next year, and he called me to give me the list because I was still helping him out by contacting people. He's going down, he goes, "Oh wait, there's one more," and he told me, and that was a lot.
Yeah.
But a lot of the tournaments, things I saw out at Finney's. Finney used to run an overnight tournament for the women's. They'd play all night long, around the clock. We turn off the announcing after 10 or 11 o'clock and then start up again at 6 in the morning. And just, you've seen so many things about people. It was just wonderful. I remember during one of those overnight tours when Leon was running the ballpark. Leon, God bless his soul. I mean, he's still around, but he would work his butt. If he'd close, he'd bartend until closing time, come back at 5 in the morning to get the fields ready. And it was during a women's tournament. he came upstairs to the booth, and he goes, Paul, I'm going to take a nap. It was like a 9 o'clock game. Don't let anybody bother me, okay? He gets there's a glove, an extra glove laying on the shelf. He puts the glove on the floor. He's actually got the glove for his pillow. There's big old Leon laying on the floor back there. And so the Finney's New Yorkers come up there, 8 or 9 of them. Where's Leon? We want to thank him for running this tournament. Where's Leon? We go, shh, he's down there. He goes, we'll get him up. They come around there poking him and stuff. Leon's not budging. He goes, we got Dunkin' Donuts. They waved a donut underneath his nose. All of a sudden, he went like this. And he woke up and had a donut with him.
Started his day.
Yeah, the things you see out there, and it's just hard to believe. Some things, like you did it, one thing, I quit drinking beer in 85. I quit drinking in 1985. But it's still, after a game, you never wanted to go home because you were afraid of what you'd miss.
Oh, yeah.
Something might happen. And when you played at the 400 Club, a lot of things could happen down there.
Yeah.
But you thought you might miss something.
Yeah, absolutely. That was, you're socializing. See, you go out and see, the teams would go from one bar to the other. So when you've had a whole couple, 2 or 3 nights a week doing that, you get your system pretty well in tune. So it becomes customary to go over and either give a little business to the team, like Finney's once in a while, we beat them or they beat us or whatever.
Or eat crow, right?
Oh, and eat a little crow and have some fun. Because the guys, I don't think anybody took it so serious,
Hoff's on Thursday nights. If you didn't have a bar you played for, everybody ended up at Hoff's.
Yeah.
And was it? There was a bar just down the street there. I forget the name of it now. It was like half a block away. And back then there was a newspaper that Jack Ostrowski and Glenn Mariscalco put out called Play Ball. Covered softball, baseball, high school, and everything else. And there was only 8 issues ever made. And they had advertising. And that bar down the street, I don't know if it was Midori's or what, had a little coupon. Said, free drink on us, just come on in. And then Ronnie Hoff had all the piles of those newspaper in his bar. And being not so polite, we'd all rip out the thing, go down the block, have our drink there for nothing, and come back to Hoff's. But it was just like, they don't think they ran that ad more than 1 week.
In 1 year.
Yeah, that was it. They lost money, yeah.
Jack, you shared a lot. You have a great story. Is there anything else you'd like to share, memories, experience?
Well, I kind of wondered how this was going to play since we did talk preliminary before and stuff. And I came home and I told my wife, I says, boy, oh boy, that was really good. We had a good talk and everything. And I said, I hope it comes off the same way today. And I just want to say thanks again for inviting me to do this. Stories. My life's been a story, as Paulie knows. And I think for me, getting to know Jim and Paulie this has just been outstanding. Because I have a I think we talked about it before, about with his mom and stuff, but it's an involved relationship that sometimes as a kid growing up, you like to have buddies you might call your brother. That guy's my brother. You know what I mean? That's because of softball. Guy calls me up and says, hey, we're having a get together, you got elected, and besides, I don't want to write a book, and what do you think? Well, give a little insight, could you? So then that's basically how it started. But I'm so thankful. That's why this weekend, or when we have this tournament, I'm gonna try and make as many games as I can this year, because I was sick as hell last year, and doggone it, I missed not only last year, but I missed my Raider game too that night. That's another thing. We talked about playing softball.
Does he have time for one story?
Yeah.
Dick Laba, his name more name. Back in the day, Dick Laba was the offensive captain for the Racine Raiders football team.
Yeah.
He was the defensive captain.
Yeah,
they played in the summertime.
Yeah.
Dick was playing for Finney's Lounge in a doubleheader league at Lincoln Park on Sundays. He was playing for Terabasi's. They were playing against each other in a doubleheader. That meant whoever came out ahead of that doubleheader took over first place.
That was our Thursday night. That was a
When they
Thursday
were playing
night.
makeup games on Sunday?
But
Okay.
we had a Thursday. It was Thursday because that's when practice was.
So between games, they knew they had to go to their practice. I mean, a team meeting up in Racine.
Practice.
Tell them that story.
Basically practice. Well, you know, you trust the little guy all these years.
Well,
You know, you
little
wouldn't
guy.
think the guy would pull a sneaker on you. I've known Lava to be the most honest guy. I trust him with anything. So after the game, I'm not even sure. I think
In between
In
games.
between games,
in
it
between
was.
the game, I says, Lobs, we gotta go. He goes, oh yeah. He says, I get my stuff. He says, and I'll meet you up there. I says, sounds good, man. I says, come on, we got a big game coming. I think it was going to be against Madison, maybe. And I says, we got to, you know, it's a practice. So I hop on my bike. I had a little chopper at that time and roared up to Racine, and I'm expecting Labas, you know, Christ, we're going to be, you know, he's going to be walking into the door any time, you know. He ain't even on the practice field. What the heck is going on here? Oh, he probably had car trouble or something, you know. Well, wasn't car trouble at all.
He rode around the block.
He rolled around the block, the little stinker, and he came back and he beat us too. So I got, after all, I knew that he wasn't. So I go to the bar, of course. It's what you do on Thursday night after the game. Go to Finney's, and I looked at him, and he just started laughing. He goes, I says, I gave him my normal bomb-loaded F-bomb kind of thing going on, but we laughed to beat the band. We had a good time because never would I expect him putting one over on me, because Dick just to me wasn't like that. But I know he is, so I got to watch my back on him next time. But yeah, that's probably again one of the most best things that come out of it. All these years having the relationships you do with the guys, the ball players, and still. And Lava, of course. I mean, Jesus, if Lava didn't go to Washington with me, we wouldn't have had any good teams. And then, because he was a block on the south side of 52nd, the parents and everybody, they went to the school board, and that's how Lava got to go to Washington. And then, of course, he was right by Bradford, and if Lava, you know, Lava has to go to Bradford, so that evened it out big time, because without Lava at Bradford, we wouldn't have as nearly as good a teams as we did, of course.
Right.
But that's the value of playing sports.
Great story.
Oh, it is. Got a lot of them, but like I said, I'm just thankful for these guys, and thanks for doing this.
Glad to have you here.
Oh yeah, this is just good stuff. You put a big smile on an old man's face, but you know, I just enjoy sports all my life. My father, my mother were sports people. My dad pitched in the minors. My mom was a couple sport athlete in school, so I always had that good encouragement, you know, and so I guess kind of something that went natural. Besides, everybody came to my house to eat before you went back to the park anyway, so yeah, Mom used to cook for everybody. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, well, 2020, 2021, we had the COVID pandemic. What did that do to the Rotary tournament?
Canceled the tournament.
Yeah, that's
Both
We
years?
had no, just 20.
Just 1 year.
We didn't have the tournament. And then we also did not have the Hall of Fame. And so the following year, 2021, we inducted double the normal number. The normal number is 10 a year because of all of the different, and I even mentioned this, but in the last 5 years or so, we've been paying more attention to the county fast pitch teams. We had kind of looked at slow pitch heavily the first 8 years or so, and now we are paying more attention to the fast pitch league. So we have, you know, we don't have the senior division anymore. Remember, we talked more about the guys that played before 1960. That's kind of drying up, and we're replacing it with the fast pitch. So 10 a year. In 21, we had 20.
Okay. All right, great. Well, on behalf of the Kenosha History Center and Kenosha Community Media, thank you all for participating in the award-winning Kenosha Voices Oral History Project.
And I get to
Thanks
meet
for
you,
having us.
and I think that's pretty special.
Yeah, 'cause pleasure meeting you.